The moment I pressed play on that video, the entire reception hall fell silent. 200 guests, all dressed in their finest attire, froze with champagne flutes. Mid-air, the bride's smile vanished. But it was my grandson, Michael's face, I watched most carefully. The way his expression transformed from confusion to recognition, then to horror, as his own voice filled the elegant ballroom. Grandma has no idea what online banking even is. Trust me, she'll never notice. I'm Janine Wilson, 73 years old, retired high school English teacher, widow of 48 years, mother of 2, grandmother of 5, and until 6 months ago, I was also the perfect victim. They say wisdom comes with age. What they don't tell you is that sometimes humiliation, betrayal, and heartbreak are the price of that wisdom. But they also don't tell you about the sweet, perfect satisfaction of justice served at precisely the right moment. It all began last Christmas. The whole family had gathered at my colonial-style home in Connecticut, the same home where I'd raised my children, where my husband Thomas had taken his last breath, and where I'd stubbornly remained despite my daughter Catherine's insistence that I downsize to something more manageable. Michael had always been my favorite grandchild, though I'd never admitted it aloud. He had Thomas's eyes, that same deep blue that seemed to change with his mood, and a charm that could melt the sternest heart. He'd graduated from business school 2 years prior, and had recently announced his engagement to Elise, a quiet girl with expensive taste, whom I'd only met twice. "Grandma," Michael said that evening, settling beside me on the sofa, while the others cleared the dinner table. "I've been thinking about you living here all alone." I sipped my tea. "I'm perfectly fine, dear. I know. But the world is changing so fast. Everything's online now. Banking, shopping, even doctor's appointments." He placed his hand over mine. "I worry about you getting left behind." His concern seemed so genuine that I felt a warmth spread through my chest. My own children were always busy with their lives. Catherine with her law practice in Boston, James with his family in Seattle. Michael was the only one who called regularly, who remembered my birthday without Facebook reminders. "What do you suggest?" I asked. His face brightened. "I could teach you. Just the basics. Email, internet browsing, online banking. It would make everything so much easier for you." "I don't know, Michael. I've managed just fine with paper statements and checks all these years." "Grandma," he said, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "The truth is, it would make things easier for all of us. Mom worries about you constantly, and if she knew you could handle things online, she'd stop pestering you about moving to that retirement community." He had me there. Catherine's campaign to relocate me had intensified since Thomas passed. The thought of leaving our home, the garden Thomas had planted, the door frames marked with our children's heights, the bedroom where we'd whispered dreams to each other for decades, was unbearable. "All right," I conceded. "When would we start these lessons?" Michael's smile was dazzling. "How about tomorrow? I'll bring my laptop." I couldn't have known then that I'd just invited the wolf into my home, or that behind those familiar blue eyes lurked a predator I never suspected. But that's the thing about trust. It makes you blind to the most obvious dangers, especially when they come disguised as love. The lessons began innocently enough. Michael arrived the day after Christmas with his sleek silver laptop and endless patience. He showed me how to create an email account, navigate search engines, and find my favorite classical music on YouTube. I was surprised by how quickly I caught on, and even more surprised by how much I enjoyed it. "You're a natural, Grandma," Michael encouraged as I successfully sent my first email to Catherine. "Most people your age struggle much more with technology." I bristled slightly at "people your age," but was too pleased with my accomplishment to dwell on it. For 3 days, Michael came every afternoon. We'd sit at my dining room table, his laptop between us, as he guided me through the digital world I'd avoided for so long. On the 4th day, he brought up online banking. It's really the most useful thing," he explained. "You can check your balance anytime, pay bills without writing checks, even deposit checks by taking pictures of them with your phone. I don't have one of those smartphones," I reminded him. "We'll fix that soon," he promised. "But for now, let's just set up your accounts so you can view them." I hesitated. "I don't know, Michael. My financial information seems rather private." He looked hurt. "Grandma, it's me. I'm trying to help you be independent. Besides, I work in finance. This is literally what I do for a living." Shame washed over me. Of course I could trust Michael. Hadn't he always been the thoughtful one? The one who called just to check in? The one who remembered I preferred lilies to roses? "You're right," I said. "I'm sorry for doubting you." His smile returned. "No problem. Now, do you have your account numbers and social security card?" I retrieved my carefully organized financial folder from my study, the one Thomas had helped me create after his diagnosis, knowing I would need to manage everything alone. Michael whistled when he saw the balance of my accounts. "Grandma, you're loaded," he joked. I smiled tightly. "Your grandfather was prudent with our savings, and his life insurance policy was substantial. What I didn't mention was the sale of our vacation property in Vermont, or the inheritance from my sister. Thomas and I had lived modestly, but we'd accumulated quite a nest egg over the decades. Michael helped me create accounts for my bank, retirement fund, and investment portfolio. He showed me how to check balances and transfer money between accounts. When we finished, he insisted on setting up two-factor authentication for security. "This means they'll send a code to your phone whenever you log in," he explained. "Since you don't have a smartphone yet, I'll put my number for now. We can change it once we get you set up properly." It seemed reasonable at the time. "Everything did. You've been so patient with me," I told him as he packed up to leave. "I don't know how to thank you." Michael hugged me tightly. "Seeing you embrace the modern world is thanks enough, Grandma. I'm proud of you." As I watched him drive away, I felt a new confidence. Perhaps Catherine would finally stop her retirement community campaign once she saw how well I was adapting. Perhaps I wasn't as old as everyone seemed to think. I had no idea that I'd just handed over the keys to my financial kingdom, or that my beloved grandson was already planning how to use them. January passed in a blur of winter storms and quiet days. I practiced my new computer skills on the laptop Michael had convinced me to purchase. Nothing fancy, Grandma. Just something basic for email and browsing. It cost nearly $1,000. But Michael assured me it was a necessary investment. He called often, asking me to log into my accounts while he guided me through various features. Sometimes he'd request that I read him the verification codes sent to his phone, explaining that the system required periodic re-verification. I never questioned it. Why would I? This was Michael, who'd sat on my lap for story time, who'd cried on my shoulder when he didn't make the baseball team, who'd asked for my pearl earrings to give to Elise when he proposed. In February, I received a call from Catherine. "Mom, have you been making large withdrawals from your accounts?" Her voice was tight with concern. "No, dear. Just the usual expenses. Are you sure? Because I just got a call from Edward." Edward was our family financial advisor, who'd worked with Thomas for years. "He said there have been several unusual transactions from your accounts over the past month." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "What kind of transactions?" "Wire transfers, mostly. One for $15,000 last week, another for $20,000 the week before." "That's impossible," I said. "I haven't authorized any transfers." "Mom, he said they were done through online banking. Did you give anyone access to your accounts?" Michael's face flashed in my mind, but I immediately dismissed the thought. Not Michael. Never Michael. "I've been learning to use online banking," I admitted. "But I've only been checking balances, not moving money." Catherine sighed. "I'm coming over tomorrow. Don't do anything until I get there." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the verification codes, the way Michael had insisted on using his phone number, How he'd always guided me away from the transaction history pages when we were reviewing my accounts. No, I told myself firmly. I was being paranoid. There had to be another explanation. But at 3 a.m., I found myself at the dining room table, laptop open, staring at the login page for my bank. I entered my username and password with shaking fingers. A text message with a verification code was sent to Michael's phone. But of course, I couldn't complete the login without it. I sat back, a terrible realization dawning. I had no access to my own accounts without Michael's involvement. How had I not noticed this before? The next morning, Catherine arrived with Edward in tow. His grave expression confirmed my worst fears before he even spoke. "Mrs. Wilson," he said gently, "someone has been systematically emptying your accounts. The retirement fund has been depleted by nearly $200,000, and your checking account is down to less than $5,000. Catherine's face was pale with anger. "Who would do this? We need to call the police immediately." I couldn't speak. The betrayal was too enormous, too crushing to put into words. But I knew. Deep in my heart, I already knew. "It's Michael," I finally said, my voice barely audible. Catherine stared at me in disbelief. "Michael? Your grandson Michael? That's absurd, Mom." But Edward was already nodding slowly. The transfers were all directed to accounts at First National. "That's where Michael works, isn't it?" The room seemed to tilt around me. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. He helped me set up the online banking. He put his phone number for the verification codes. Catherine's expression shifted from disbelief to horror. "Are you saying he's been stealing from you? His own grandmother?" I couldn't bear to say it aloud again, so I simply nodded. What followed was a blur of activity. Phone calls to the bank's fraud department. A visit from a sympathetic police officer who took detailed notes, forms to sign, accounts to freeze. Through it all, I felt strangely detached, as if watching someone else's tragedy unfold. "We'll get the money back," Catherine assured me, though her voice lacked conviction. "And we'll make sure Michael faces consequences." But I knew it wouldn't be that simple. White-collar crime rarely resulted in significant punishment, especially for first-time offenders from good families. And the money? Some might be recovered, but much of it was likely gone. Spent on the lavish engagement party Michael and Elise had hosted in January, perhaps. Or the down payment on the luxury condo they'd just purchased. That night, after Catherine had gone to her hotel with promises to return in the morning, I sat alone in Thomas's old study. His photograph watched me from the desk. Thomas at 65, silver-haired and smiling, his eyes crinkling at the corners in that way that had always made my heart skip. "What would you do, Thomas?" I whispered to the empty room. I could almost hear his response. "The same thing you're going to do, Janine. You're going to fight back." Thomas had always admired my resilience. When we lost our first baby, when his cancer diagnosis came, when our son James went through his troubled years, Thomas had been my rock, but I had been his as well. We had faced every challenge together, heads high, refusing to be victims. And now, though Thomas was gone, that spirit remained in me. I opened my laptop and began to research. If Michael had taught me anything useful during those lessons, it was how to find information online. I read about financial fraud, elder abuse, and digital evidence. I learned about screen recording software and data recovery. I discovered forums where other seniors shared similar stories of betrayal by family members. By dawn, I had a plan. It wasn't just about recovering the money anymore, though I certainly intended to do that. It was about justice. It was about making sure Michael understood exactly what he had done, and to whom. The predator had chosen the wrong prey. He thought I was a helpless old woman, easy to manipulate, and quick to forgive. He was about to learn how very wrong he was. The next morning, I called James in Seattle. "I need your help," I said after explaining the situation. And I need you not to tell Catherine what we're doing. James had always been my more impulsive child, the one willing to bend rules when necessary. Unlike his sister, who saw the world in black and white, James understood shades of gray. "What do you have in mind, Mom?" he asked. "I need evidence. The police are investigating, but these cases are difficult to prove, especially when family is involved. Michael could claim I gave him permission, that it was a gift. And how do we get this evidence? I'm going to invite him over for another lesson. I need you to help me set up something called screen recording software before then." James was silent for a moment. "You're going to try to get him to confess." "Yes, that's risky, Mom. If he realizes what you're doing..." "He won't," I interrupted. "He thinks I'm a technological dinosaur, remember? That's why he targeted me in the first place." 2 days later, James arrived with the tools we needed. He installed the software on my laptop, showing me how to activate it discreetly. He also brought a small recording device that looked like an ordinary pen. "Keep it in your pocket," he instructed. "It's a backup in case the screen recording fails." We rehearsed what I would say, how I would guide the conversation without raising suspicion. James wanted to be present during the meeting, but I refused. "Michael will be on guard if you're here. He needs to think I'm alone and clueless." James didn't like it, but he respected my decision. He checked into a nearby hotel, promising to remain on standby. That evening I called Michael. "Grandma!" His voice was warm, as if nothing had changed. "How are you?" "A bit confused, actually," I said, keeping my tone light. "I've been trying to log into my banking accounts, but it keeps asking for a code." "Oh, right. They send those to my phone. Do you need to check something?" "I was just curious about my balance. I'm thinking of redecorating the guest room, and I wanted to see what I could afford." Michael hesitated. "Well, I could check for you right now if you want. Actually, I was hoping you might come over tomorrow for another lesson. I feel like I'm forgetting everything you taught me." Another pause. "Sure, Grandma. How about tomorrow afternoon? Around 3? "Perfect. I'll bake those chocolate chip cookies you love." After we hung up, I sat motionless, my heart pounding. The casual way he'd spoken, as if he hadn't stolen my life savings, made my blood boil, but anger wouldn't serve me now. I needed to be calm, calculated, and completely in control. The next day, I prepared meticulously. I baked the cookies as promised. Michael had always been susceptible to the power of homemade sweets. I set up the laptop on the dining room table, the screen recording software ready to activate with a simple keyboard shortcut. The recording pen was in my cardigan pocket. At precisely 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, channeling every acting skill I'd developed during 40 years of teaching teenagers. Then I opened the door with a warm smile. "Michael, how wonderful to see you. Come in, dear." Michael stepped inside, bringing with him the scent of expensive cologne. He kissed my cheek and handed me a small bouquet of lilies. "Thought these might brighten your day, Grandma." I accepted them with a grateful smile, noting how the gesture was perfectly calculated. My favorite flowers, thoughtfully selected. Michael had always understood the power of small kindnesses to disarm people. "How thoughtful. Let me put these in water and then we can get started. The cookies are just cooling." In the kitchen, I activated the recording pen in my pocket before arranging the flowers in a vase. When I returned to the dining room with cookies and tea, Michael was already seated at the table, my laptop open before him. "So," he said, "you're having trouble with your accounts?" I nodded, sitting beside him. "I can't seem to get past that verification step." "No problem. Let me show you again." As he typed in my username and password, which he apparently knew by heart, I discreetly pressed the keyboard shortcut James had taught me. The screen recording began silently. "See, when you log in, they send a code to my phone," Michael explained, showing me his screen as a text message arrived. "I enter that code here and voila, we're in." The account summary page appeared, and I had to suppress a gasp. My checking account which should have contained over 50,000, showed balance of 241.78. My savings account was down to 12,000 from nearly 200,000. That can't be right, I said, allowing genuine distress to color my voice. Where's all my money? Michael's expression shifted subtly. A tightening around the eyes, a slight tension in his jaw. What do you mean, Grandma? This is your current balance. But I had much more than this. Your grandfather and I saved for decades. He placed a hand over mine, his touch gentle but his eyes calculating. Grandma, you've been making some large purchases lately. Remember the new furniture? And you gave Mom that check to help with her condo renovation. Both were lies. I hadn't bought new furniture in years, and Catherine owned a house, not a condo. I didn't buy any furniture, Michael. And what renovation are you talking about? He sighed, adopting a concerned expression. I'm worried about you, Grandma. These memory lapses. I don't have memory lapses, I interrupted sharply. Then, remembering my purpose, I softened my tone. Show me the transaction history. Maybe that will jog my memory. Reluctantly, Michael clicked on the account activity tab. A list of withdrawals appeared. 25,000 turn account I didn't recognize. 30, $0 to another. $15,000 to something called Elite Investments. I didn't authorize any of these transfers, I said quietly. Michael's demeanor changed. The solicitous grandson disappeared, replaced by something colder, more calculating. Grandma, you asked me to help you with these transfers. Don't you remember? We discussed your investment strategy. We did no such thing. He leaned back, studying me. Look, I think you're getting confused. It happens at your age. Why don't we call Mom, and why is your name on some of these transfers, Michael? The question caught him off guard. His eyes flicked to the screen, where indeed, several transactions listed Michael Wilson as the recipient. You asked me to move that money into accounts I could manage for you, he said smoothly. You wanted me to help grow your nest egg, remember? We talked about it at Christmas. I looked directly into his eyes. Thomas's eyes, but without Thomas's integrity. No, Michael, we didn't. A tense silence stretched between us. Then Michael's expression hardened. What exactly are you suggesting, Grandma? It was the moment of truth. I took a deep breath and played my hand. I'm suggesting that you've been stealing from me, Michael. Systematically emptying my accounts after setting up online banking that I can't access without your help. Michael's face drained of color, then flushed with anger. That's ridiculous. I've been helping you by taking nearly $400,000 from my accounts. That's not help, Michael. That's theft. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I can't believe you would accuse me of this. After everything I've done for you. I remained seated, keeping my voice steady. What exactly have you done for me? Besides teaching me enough about computers to give you access to my money, I visit you. I call you. I care about you. His voice rose with each statement. And that gives you the right to steal from me? I didn't steal anything. He was nearly shouting now. You're just a confused old woman who can't remember giving her grandson permission to manage her finances. There it was. The contempt beneath the charm, the true face behind the mask. I felt a strange calm settle over me. This wasn't my grandson anymore. This was a stranger wearing his face. If I gave you permission, I said quietly, why did you need to set up the account so that all verification codes go to your phone? Why can't I access my own money without your help? Michael ran a hand through his hair, his composure cracking. This is insane. I'm trying to protect you from scammers, from making financial mistakes. By becoming the scammer yourself? By taking advantage of your own grandmother? He paced the room, agitated. You have no idea what you're talking about. You don't understand modern finance. I understand theft, Michael. I understand betrayal. He stopped pacing and turned to face me, his expression suddenly calculating. You can't prove anything. It would be your word against mine. And frankly, Grandma, who do you think people will believe? a successful financial advisor, or an elderly woman who can barely use email. The cruelty of his words stung. But I didn't flinch. You might be surprised, even if you could prove it, which you can't. Do you really want to do this? Drag the family through a scandal? Break your daughter's heart? Because Catherine will be devastated when she learns her precious son is being accused of theft by her increasingly senile mother. I stood then, drawing myself up to my full height. I might be 73, but in that moment, I felt the strength of every year, every experience, every hardship I'd overcome. I'm not senile, Michael, and I'm not afraid of you. Something in my tone must have unsettled him. He studied my face, then glanced at the laptop. What did you do? He asked slowly. What makes you think I did anything? His eyes narrowed. You're too calm, too prepared for this conversation. I said nothing, merely holding his gaze. Michael lunged for the laptop, scanning the screen. Then he saw it. The small recording indicator in the corner that James had warned might be visible to a careful observer. You're recording this? His voice was incredulous. You set me up? I learned from the best, I replied coldly. He slammed the laptop closed. Delete it, now. No, Grandma, you don't want to do this. Think about the wedding, think about the family. I am thinking about the family. I'm thinking about what your grandfather would say if he could see you now. Michael's face contorted with rage. Grandfather is dead, and you're just a bitter old woman with more money than you need or deserve. The words hung in the air between us, ugly and irretrievable. In that moment, I saw Michael clearly for perhaps the first time. Not as the charming boy I'd loved, but as the man he'd become. Entitled, ruthless, devoid of empathy. Get out of my house, I said quietly. Not until you delete that recording. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Another new purchase James had helped me with. I've already sent copies to my lawyer, to the police, and to your mother. It's over, Michael. His face went slack with shock. Then, without another word, he grabbed his coat and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I sank into a chair, my hands trembling now that the confrontation was over. I hadn't actually sent the recordings anywhere yet. The phone was just for show. But Michael didn't need to know that. I called James immediately. It's done, I said when he answered, and I think I got exactly what we needed. The weeks that followed were among the most difficult of my life. The family fractured along predictable lines. Catherine initially refused to believe Michael could be guilty, suggesting I had indeed given him permission, and then forgotten. James stood firmly by my side, as did my daughter-in-law Melissa. My other grandchildren were confused and hurt, caught in the middle of a family tragedy none of them fully understood. The evidence, however, was irrefutable. The screen recording captured not only Michael's admissions, but also the transaction history showing systematic transfers to accounts in his name. The audio from the recording pen provided additional proof, catching his threat about my word against his and his cruel comments about my age and mental capacity. When confronted with the evidence, Michael changed tactics. He claimed he had been borrowing the money, with every intention of paying it back. He'd made some bad investments, he said, and needed temporary financial help. He'd been too ashamed to ask directly. If that were true, my lawyer pointed out, why set up the accounts so Mrs. Wilson couldn't access them independently? Why lie about furniture purchases and renovations that never happened? The police investigation revealed the full extent of the theft. $427,000 over just 2 months. Most a fifth a doll-ready been spent. $150,000 on a down payment for a luxury condo. $75,000 on an engagement ring for lease. $30,000 on a new car, and various smaller amounts on expensive clothes, restaurants, and weekend getaways. Elise broke off the engagement when she learned the truth. I thought we were building a life together based on hard work and shared values, she told Catherine during a tearful phone call. I can't marry someone who would steal from his own grandmother. The district attorney offered Michael a deal. Full restitution, 5 years probation, and community service in exchange for a guilty plea to reduced charges. No jail time, provided he paid back every penny. Take it, I told the DA. I want my money back more than I want my grandson in prison. Michael's father, Catherine's ex-husband, agreed to loan him the money for restitution. The condo was sold, the car returned, the engagement ring pawned. Within 3 months, my accounts were restored to their previous balances. But money couldn't restore what had been broken. Family dinners became tense affairs, with Michael conspicuously absent. Catherine struggled to reconcile her love for her son with the undeniable evidence of his betrayal. James suggested I move to Seattle to be closer to his family, away from the painful reminders in Connecticut. Through it all, I remained in my home, tending Thomas's garden, sleeping in our bed, living the life we had built together. I refused to be driven away by Michael's actions. This was my home, my life, and I would not surrender it. 6 months after that confrontation in my dining room, an elegant cream envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was an invitation to Michael and Elise's wedding. I stared at it in disbelief. Elise had taken him back? After everything that had happened, I called Catherine immediately. "Did you know about this?" "Yes," she admitted. "They reconciled about a month ago. Michael's been seeing a therapist. He says he's changed, Mom." "And you believe that?" Catherine sighed. "I want to. He's my son. He's also a thief who showed no remorse until he was caught." "He's paid you back every cent," Catherine said defensively. "And he's asked me to tell you how sorry he is, how much he wants you at the wedding. Why doesn't he tell me himself? He's afraid you won't take his calls." She was right about that, at least. I had blocked his number months ago. "Will you come, Mom? Please? For me?" If not for him, I wanted to refuse. Every instinct told me to tear up the invitation and forget I'd ever received it. But Catherine sounded so hopeful, so desperate to piece our fractured family back together. "I'll think about it," I said finally. That night, I sat in Thomas's study again, the invitation on the desk between us. "What would you do?" I asked his photograph. The answer came not in Thomas's voice this time, but in my own. I would go, not for Michael's sake, but to close this chapter properly, on my terms. To look him in the eye one last time, and let him know exactly who he had underestimated. I called Catherine the next morning. "I'll attend the wedding," I said, "but I have one condition." "Anything, Mom." "I want to give a toast at the reception." The wedding was scheduled for June at the Grand Harbor Hotel, an upscale venue overlooking the Connecticut shoreline. In the months leading up to it, I prepared meticulously. I bought a new dress, elegant navy blue with a matching jacket. Nothing too flashy, but certainly not matronly. I visited the hairdresser for the first time in years, trading my practical bob for a more sophisticated style that took years off my appearance. James was concerned when I told him my plan. "Are you sure about this, Mom? It seems risky." "I'm sure," I replied. "And I'm not asking for permission." The day of the wedding arrived, sunny and mild, with a gentle breeze off the water. I arrived early, taking a seat near the back of the ceremony space. Other guests filtered in, many glancing curiously in my direction. I recognized most of them. Family, friends, relatives, colleagues of Catherine and Michael. Some nodded politely. Others averted their eyes, unsure how to interact with the grandmother, who had pressed charges against the groom. Catherine found me before the ceremony began. She looked beautiful in her mother-of-the-groom dress, though strain showed around her eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said, embracing me tightly. "It means so much. I wouldn't miss it," I replied, returning her hug. "About your toast," she began hesitantly. "Don't worry," I assured her. "I'll be appropriate." She searched my face, not entirely convinced. "Mom, please. Whatever happened between you and Michael, can we just have peace today? That's exactly what I want," I said truthfully. closure. The ceremony itself was lovely, if somewhat subdued. Michael looked handsome in his tuxedo, though thinner than I remembered. Elise made a beautiful bride, her smile a bit tight around the edges. They exchanged traditional vows, promising to love and honor each other through better or worse. I wondered if Elise truly understood how much worse Michael was capable of. At the reception, I was seated at a table with distant relatives, not at the family table near the bridal party. A deliberate choice, no doubt, to keep me at a safe distance. I didn't mind. It gave me time to observe, to prepare. The usual festivities unfolded. First dance, father-daughter dance, mother-son dance. Catherine wept openly as she danced with Michael. Dinner was served, champagne flowed, and gradually the initial tension in the room dissipated as guests relaxed into celebration. Then came time for the toasts. The best man went first, sharing amusing anecdotes about Michael's college days. Elise's maid of honor followed with a tearful tribute to their friendship. Catherine spoke briefly, her voice breaking as she wished the couple happiness. Finally, the wedding planner approached my table. "Mrs. Wilson, if you'd like to offer your toast now?" I nodded, rising smoothly from my seat. The room quieted as I made my way to the small stage where a microphone stood waiting. I could feel every eye on me, could sense the collective tension. Michael, seated at the head table, looked like he might be ill. I took the microphone and smiled at the assembled guests. "For those who don't know me, I'm Janine Wilson, Michael's grandmother. First, I want to thank you all for being here to celebrate this special day." I paused, looking directly at Michael and Elise. Marriage is built on many things. Love, certainly, but also trust, honesty, and respect. These are values my late husband Thomas and I cherished during our 48 years together. The room was utterly silent now, guests frozen in anticipation of what might come next. I've been thinking about what gift I could give the happy couple today. Something meaningful. Something that might help them build a strong foundation for their life together. I reached into my clutch and removed a small USB drive. I decided the greatest gift I could offer is the gift of truth. I held up the USB drive so everyone could see it. On this drive is a recording I made 6 months ago, during what Michael called a computer lesson. Michael half rose from his seat, his face ashen. Catherine placed a restraining hand on his arm, her expression pleading. "Don't worry," I continued smoothly. "I'm not going to play it right now. That would be inappropriate for such a joyous occasion." Relief visibly washed over the bridal table. Michael sank back into his chair. "Instead," I said, "I'm giving this to you, Elise, as my wedding gift. Because marriage should begin with complete honesty, with eyes wide open." I walked to the bridal table and placed the USB drive in front of Elise. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked from the drive to me, uncertainty in her eyes. "This contains the full truth about what happened between Michael and me. I believe you deserve to know exactly who you've married. Not just the charming facade, but the person beneath." Michael's jaw clenched, a muscle twitching in his cheek. But he remained silent, perhaps aware that any outburst would only confirm suspicions. I turned back to address the room. "Many of you know that there was a disagreement in our family recently. Some of you have heard Michael's version of events. Some have heard rumors. Few know the whole truth." I paused, taking in the uncomfortable shifting of guests, the tense expressions. "But today isn't about the past. It's about the future. And I sincerely hope," I looked directly at Michael, "that the future holds growth, redemption, and genuine change." I raised my champagne glass. "So my toast is this. May your marriage be built on truth, even when it's difficult. May you find the courage to face your flaws and the strength to become better people together. And may you never forget that our actions have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who loves us." The room remained silent as I finished. No one seemed to know whether to drink to such an unconventional toast. Finally, James stood and raised his glass. Others followed hesitantly, a ripple of movement across the reception hall. I returned to my seat, my heart pounding but my composure intact. I had said what needed to be said, had placed the truth literally on the table. What happened next was up to Michael and Elise. Dinner continued, the band played, and gradually the celebration resumed its rhythm. Though a current of tension remained, I noticed Michael and Elise in an intense whispered conversation. Her expression troubled, his defensive. The USB drive remained untouched between them. As the evening progressed, I prepared to make a quiet exit. I had accomplished what I came to do. But as I gathered my things, I felt a presence beside me. I looked up to find Michael standing there, his expression unreadable. "May I sit?" he asked stiffly. I nodded, watching him carefully as he took the chair beside me. "Was that necessary?" he asked, his voice low. "Today of all days, I think it was," I replied calmly. "Elise deserves to know who she's married, and you needed to understand that actions have consequences beyond legal settlements." He stared at his hands. "I've apologized. I've paid back every cent. I'm seeing a therapist. What more do you want from me?" "Genuine remorse would be a start," I said. "Not for getting caught, but for the betrayal itself." Michael was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its defensive edge. "I don't expect you to believe me, but I am sorry. Not just for getting caught, for all of it." "Why did you do it, Michael? We would have helped if you needed money." He shook his head. "It wasn't really about the money, or not only about that." He looked up, meeting my eyes for the first time. "It was about proving I could, about feeling powerful. My therapist says I have narcissistic tendencies." He gave a bitter laugh. "Apparently that's not a good thing." Despite everything, I felt a flicker of compassion. The boy I had loved was still in there somewhere, buried beneath layers of entitlement and poor choices. "What will you do now?" I asked. "Try to be better," he said simply. "Try to deserve Elise. Try to rebuild what I've broken." He hesitated. "Including with you, if you'll let me." I studied his face, searching for sincerity. "That would take time, Michael. And consistent actions, not just words." He nodded. "I know." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything between us. Love and betrayal, hurt and hope, filling the space. "I should get back to my wife," he said finally, standing. "Yes, you should." He took a step, then turned back. "The USB drive, what's really on it?" I smiled slightly. "Exactly what I said. The truth. Whether you and Elise choose to face it together is up to you." Michael nodded once, then walked back to the bridal table. I watched as he rejoined Elise, as they spoke briefly, as she picked up the USB drive and slipped it into her purse. Whatever happened next would be their story to write. I left the reception shortly after, declining Catherine's offer to have someone drive me home. The night air was cool and fresh as I walked to my car, and for the first time in months, I felt truly at peace. 1 year has passed since Michael and Elise's wedding. Much has changed, some for the better, some simply different. Elise did watch the recording. She called me the day after they returned from their honeymoon, her voice steady but strained. "Thank you for giving me the truth," she said. "It was difficult to watch, but I needed to see it." "What will you do now?" I asked, echoing the question I'd posed to Michael at the reception. "We're going to try," she replied after a moment. "He's not the man I thought I was marrying, but I believe he can become someone better, someone worthy of trust again." "I hope you're right," I said sincerely. Michael and Elise moved to Boston, where she had been offered a position at a prestigious architectural firm. Michael left his job in finance, whether by choice or necessity, I never asked, and found work teaching business courses at a community college, a step down in prestige and salary, perhaps. But Catherine reports he seems more fulfilled than he did in the high-pressure world of investment banking. Our relationship remains complicated. We exchange birthday and Christmas cards. He calls occasionally. The conversation's still awkward, but gradually thawing. Last month, he and Elise invited me to dinner when they were in Connecticut, visiting Catherine. It was a stilted evening, but not an unpleasant one. I'm still in therapy, he told me as Elise and Catherine cleared the dinner plates. It's helping me understand why I did what I did. Not excusing it, but understanding it. I nodded, appreciating his candor. That's good, Michael. I don't expect you to ever fully trust me again, he continued. But I hope someday you might be able to forgive me. I considered his words carefully before responding. Forgiveness isn't something you're owed, Michael. It's something you earn day by day, choice by choice. I know, he said quietly. I'm trying, and perhaps he is. Time will tell. As for me, I've made changes too. After much consideration, I sold the Connecticut house and moved to a comfortable apartment, closer to James and his family in Seattle. It was time for a new chapter, one not defined by loss or betrayal. I've become something of a local celebrity in my new community, the tech-savvy grandmother who gives talks at the senior center about protecting yourself from financial fraud, especially from family members. The irony isn't lost on me. I've also discovered a talent for digital photography, a hobby Thomas would have found amusing given my former resistance to technology. My grandchildren, James's 3 kids, have been patient teachers, showing me how to edit and share my work online. Life continues to surprise me. At 74, I'm not the person I expected to be. Grief and betrayal have shaped me, but so have resilience and growth. I'm stronger than I knew, more adaptable than I believed possible. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I still talk to Thomas. I tell him about my day, about the family, about the unexpected turns my life has taken. I imagine him listening, that familiar twinkle in his eye, proud of how I've navigated these uncharted waters. You always were the strong one, he would say, and perhaps I am. Strong enough to face betrayal, strong enough to demand justice, strong enough even to leave room for redemption. Not guaranteed, but possible. That day at the wedding reception, when I placed the USB drive before Elise, I wasn't seeking revenge. I was closing a circle, ensuring that truth, however painful, remained at the center of our family story. Michael made his choice when he betrayed my trust. I made mine when I refused to be his victim. And now, day by day, we're all making choices about what comes next, about who we want to be, and what kind of family we might still become. It's not the ending I would have chosen, but then the most important stories rarely end as we expect. They simply continue, page after page, choice after choice, carrying us forward into chapters yet unwritten.